Good evening to you both, and let's begin with word of several award-winning books being removed from Edmonton Public School libraries for containing explicit sexual content. A former Edmonton School Board trustee was sent an internal document with a working list of books flagged for removal, among them A Handmaid's Tale by renowned Canadian author Margaret Atwood, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and Forever by Judy Blume. It comes after a ministerial order by the education minister.
It's pretty hard to think of a book like The Color Purple, for example, and say that's a pornographic novel. Does it include, sometimes upsetting content about, sexual assault? Yes. It should, in terms of what the story it's telling. I don't think that we should be always saying that we shouldn't have these conversations with youth. We should. While
not sharing a list of books, the board chair has told CTV News staff worked over the summer to ensure only books meeting the province's criteria would be removed, and says the board has concerns and voiced opposition before the order was issued. The minister says he will be following up with the division.
I just want to have a clear understanding of what method they used and how they're interpreting the ministerial order. And if we need to work with them and provide some more clarity and some updated communication, I'd be happy to do so.
The Ministry of Education has said it did not provide a list of books to remove. But Karen, I'll start with you. What kind of window do you feel this opens on the government's efforts to eliminate what it terms explicit sexual content from school libraries?
I think that sexuality are natural things that children are exposed to, whether that's in a school library, outside of a school library, sometimes actually within the school library also. What's really important, I think, is a policy like this, having books to ban in particular, is going to be detrimental to some students. Sexual content, or the discussion of explicit sexual content, when you think of, for example, The Color Purple and there's sexual assault in that book, unfortunately, those types of things happen to children too. So having a book available like that may actually call a child in to feel seen and feel heard. So I think it's unfortunate to think that by censoring material, we're going to protect children in any sort of way. That's erroneous. It's not a policy that really makes sense to me.
Tom, where do you see the debate over books in Alberta schools heading?
It's pretty hard to convince me to pull any book out of a library. For starters, kids can find anything they want on the internet, and it's only going to make it more tantalizing. But then again, the typical 15-year-old is not going to download Brave New World or The Handmaid's Tale. I want to argue that they should. My great friend, the late Canadian playwright Sharon Pollock, was an atheist, but she sent her kids to Bible camp. And the reason was, she said, they don't have cultural literacy. People make these references and they don't know what they're talking about. And she said, in particular, I came home once and they were watching Bible cartoons on TV. I said, why are you watching this bleep? And they said, we want to know who wins, David or Goliath. So there's that general literacy level. And then there's the other thing about the list. Now, that list is unofficial, but I did check it out, and I checked my own book, Techno Creep, is not on it, probably because it's nonfiction and everything on there was a novel or a graphic novel. But the other thing is, I should point out to them that on page 168 of Techno Creep, I have a photo of a sex toy in the image of the head of Justin Bieber. And so when I sign the book to kids, I always write, don't look at page 168.
All right, next up, a reminder to parents of another impending policy change with the arrival of the new school year.
Starting September 1st, parents and guardians need to opt in if their child is to receive sex ed.
The YWCA of Alberta has launched an awareness campaign urging an understanding of the changes and for families to make an informed decision.
The evidence is clear that when you have good sexual education as a youth, that you'll protect yourself against things like STDs, teen pregnancies.
In defending the opt-in move, the province states this change provides clear direction to school boards to ensure parents are fully aware of and consent to their child participating in classroom instruction on these topics.
I think that's perfect, because then the parents can decide this is something we definitely will teach our children at home.
At some point in their life, the kids are still going to get exposed to all those things, so I feel like easing them into that part of their life is only proper.
Others, though, worry about gaps in education.
It's really unnecessary, these barriers and added hoops for the opt-in. What was working before was just the opt-out.
Legislation changes also require teaching resources dealing with gender identity and sexual orientation or human sexuality be approved by the education minister. Tom, what kind of impact do you see this shift in policy having on the effectiveness of sex ed programming?
Have they heard about the internet, this thing? You know, you can go on there and see any kind of sex education, a lot of it totally wrong. And with AI, you could even say, help me, I don't know the words. Look up these concepts for me in sex education. So it's totally pointless. It's really red meat to a certain sliver of the political base in Alberta that thinks that this is bad. The ministry has to approve the materials anyway. So it's not like they're going to have something there that's really offensive. I think they should send this form in a big thick packet with all the other consent forms for the field trip to the zoo. And by the way, there's a consent form in there you should not sign. And that's the media consent form that says, yeah, you can use my kid's picture and you can post it online. That's a lot more dangerous to Alberta kids because who knows what will be done with your kid's image if you allow that to happen.
Karen, how do you feel about the policy change? And does it warrant an outside organization like YWCA to engage in a campaign of its own to make sure parents are aware?
I actually think it's a vile policy. I think that it's not right to try to limit sexual health education. And so thank you to the YWCA for actually coming in and recognizing that this is important for kids to learn. Again, as I noted before, sex is a natural thing that if you are making the choice as a parent to teach these concepts to your children, you should do that before they even hit kindergarten. It's not new. Those things become introduced to children slowly and in a safe and educational way. So actually restricting access to it or just letting people forget, there's so many field trip forms that I forget as a parent. Sex ed is not something that should happen. I grew up in Sue Johansson era, and she taught people from menopause to puberty to pleasure to different things that different people should know. And I was a young person watching those things at home, but I also got sexual education at school. They only supplement each other. So really trying to restrict it, as Tom said, is only partaking to a very small sliver of their base rather than what everybody needs to make the world happy and healthy.
Food insecurity is front and center with the new school year rapidly approaching, especially so in our province. While the Breakfast Club of Canada has seen a 30% increase in use across the country, it's 40% across 290 schools in Alberta.
We've been seeing a higher number of students accessing our programs more frequently throughout the week. Instead of just coming one time, they are coming every day.
The Breakfast Club partners with the Calgary Food Bank to help feed about 7,900 students, and that number is expected to climb this fall.
Obviously huge increases in need in the student base, but of course just huge increases in need across the population.
2023 data from Stats Canada found roughly 32% of households in the city experienced food insecurity. In the 2 years since, usage of the Calgary Food Bank has doubled.
For us and the emergency food hampers that we provide, nearly 30% of our clients and the folks that we're feeding are students and young people. Everything has a tipping point, and I think we're getting awfully close.
To keep up with demand, fundraising is underway, and officials say a $10 donation will provide a student with a full week of breakfasts. Karen, what does the ever-growing pressure on organizations like food banks, the Breakfast Club, right across Alberta, speak to for you?
I think it speaks to a need of governments not wanting to fund welfare or assistance unless it's corporate welfare or assistance. I think that it's not new, and it's across many sectors that organizations, nonprofit ones, are taking on the responsibilities of doing these things. But I think really the responsibility lies on the federal government, on the provincial government, and on all of us as citizens. Like in Alberta here, there was a pilot program that was put in place in 2022-23. They scrapped that program, and in it they were funding organizations directly, saying school boards instead wanted to have control of their nutrition programs. But many school boards still partner with these organizations to do this work, this very important work, because kids that don't eat are not learning.
Tom, what do you make of organizations like the Breakfast Club of Canada having to fundraising, not to expand programming, just to keep up with demand? Who should the responsibility of funding fall to?
Well, we can see a pretty good model in Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and this became, high profile when he was running in the vice presidential race there. He rolled out free lunches and breakfasts across the state in Minnesota. One of the key features, it was for all the kids. So there was no shame in like, I'm the poor kid, I have to go for the lunch. So that was one key point. The other thing is I think it's a teachable moment here. You see, so many kids have those like single-use juice boxes and, they're expensive and they destroy the environment. You can get a reusable juice box. There are wholesale food outlets. I know you need a car to get to them, but I won't name it. But I go to one, buy fruits and vegetables there, and I have a hard time spending $25 in the place. So maybe people need to change their habits a little bit and to adjust to what is clearly a crisis in food affordability.
Yeah, as they point out, nearing a tipping point. Okay, one more topic, and it's the somewhat mysterious reappearance of a classic Canadian store, Londonderry Mall. That's in North Edmonton. Apparently the first in Canada to see a revival of Zellers and the first to fill a former Hudson's Bay base. The owner of the mall isn't saying who is behind the opening, but says the store will occupy about 60,000 square feet with much to offer.
A lot of home goods and various clothing for men, women, kids. They'll also, what's pretty exciting is they will be bringing back the Zeddy teddy bear.
Zellers was owned by HBC, but Canada's oldest company declared bankruptcy in the spring, selling its name and trademarks to Canadian Tire. However, Canadian Tire says its purchase did not include the Zellers brand. So regardless of who owns it, some Edmontonians are happy to see the retailer returning.
Super excited. It's always been, cheap place to shop. And it just reminds me of being a kid again.
I like it. I used to shop at Zellers lots before they went away. So I'm glad to hear they're coming back.
No word as yet if the store includes the iconic Zellers. There it is. The Zellers restaurant. Tom, what do you make of all the mystery leading up to the apparent relaunch of this classic Canadian retailer? And surprised there wasn't more of a splash in the lead up.
Yeah, I think they're trying to test the waters and see, comments like you just played, if people will like this. There's not that much mystery, though. We figured out that it's probably a group led by Isaac Benetta, who owns Fairweather and Randy River. Now, there's no Randy River stores in Calgary, but it's a kind of small chain of teen fashion and so on. I personally never liked Zellers very much, but weirdly, I liked Army and Navy. And every time I went to the U of A, I would make a stop at the Army and Navy on White Avenue. Now, what's that got to do with this? Well, that store is gone. The one in Calgary, the one in Edmonton closed, but they're redeveloping, I hear, and they're going to have a kind of multi-store mall called like the A&N experience. So that may be the way of the future. We don't have these big department stores anymore. We have kind of strips of very interesting little stores. That could be.
Karen, how much of a sign is this? There could yet be life for department stores in the Canadian retail landscape.
Yeah, I'm actually happy for that. I'm not too much of an online shopper, although I will say that back to school has made that happen a bit. But I love the concept of going back more retail, and even what Tom just suggested sounds kind of neat too. For Zellers itself, I really hope that maybe if they do open the restaurant, they could feed those kids that we were talking about in the last segment. If they can't do that, I think it's important for them to have those purple corduroy pant sets that I had when I was a kid that we would always go and buy for back to school also. So I'll be there. I'll totally check out a Zellers in Londonderry Mall.
Yeah, and good to hear Zeddy the teddy bear is back, and be interesting to see if Club Z points maybe make a return. Some folks probably have a few points left to spend. All right, we've run out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you both. Hope you have an awesome long weekend.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.